Okay, so today I've got Reg in store, for 3, 2, 1. I've got Reg in studio today. Welcome, Reg.
Thanks, Nick. Nice being here.
Yeah, Reg is our resident agricultural expert. All things to do with farming. So as jy boer, if you're a farmer out there, this is for you. Okay, anything to do with livestock, crop, your actual farm, game farm, we deal with all of that. I mean, we're talking off air about precision farming. Well, there's precision insurance these days. 100%.
That's true. I think the market, not just the insurance market, but I think if you look at the agricultural landscape, I mean, every year.
The pun. Eh?
Yeah. Is that there's always going to be challenges.
Okay.
If you look at every year, we have some areas has been faced with droughts, some has been faced with flooding. I think the whole market has changed substantially due to climate that's changed in South Africa.
El Nino.
And then everything just goes on. You have 7 good years, 7 bad years was the old saying, but it's not relevant anymore. You can now.
Or 10 good years.
Or 20 good years, hopefully, for the farmers out there.
100%. Okay, so I mean, let's just run through a couple of the things. I mean, we do crop insurance, which is quite specific.
It's very specific.
Okay.
I think we've got your basic cover, which is your normal hail policy, which covers you for hail, frost, fire, locust, depending on which season is. Obviously, we split into winter and summer grains. So we've got that, and we've also got the multi-peril, which is a very nice niche insurer. It's a protection. It's basically protects all what's coming into. So if you spend 20 million rand on your productions, you know you've got 20 million rand if something would go wrong. But that connects with precision farming again. You can't be on a multi-peril if you don't do precision farming, as the insurer says it's too big of a risk. But for the basic guys out of there, we look at basically they call it the hail policy, which is your standard type of insurance. But at Mont Blanc as well, you can look at funds, self-insuring, alternative risk structures.
So we'll click on a link to talk more about funds below. I think we'll keep that off this one for today because otherwise it gets quite complicated. But we do self-insurance retention policies, which is when you have a lot of guys out there say, no, I'm self-insured. It's actually a product, and we specialize in it.
Yeah, Agri is a little bit different, but yeah, same principle applies.
100%. What about if I've got livestock and stuff like that?
So livestock, we start from where you buy it at the auction. We can do your goods in transit cover. So once you buy a nice newborn Mara bull there, you can give us we've got a nice product. It's quick online. You get our automatic rating. You can quote with us. It's quite easy. So we cover you from where it starts at the auction until it's onto the farm, where then we have your full livestock cover, which we can include your diseases.
What are the diseases? What are some of the diseases that you cover? Blue tongue,
rooiwater. Yeah. So I know most of them in Afrikaans.
Say it in Afrikaans. So
rooiwater, blauw tong.
Yeah. We're putting them in English here for you guys. Okay.
So the rooiwater, blauw tong is your meeste, and then obviously impotency. So that's when your bull's not fertile anymore. They end up, they land up in a fight with another bull or whatever happens to that. Then we've got your normal.
What about if my animal has a snake bite or something like that?
That is you can cover it, but it's very specific. The same goes to if you make a error in your feeding process, and for example you feed too much urium, then you can cover that as well. But it's very, and not all insurers offers the same side of covers. So some is only a strict list. Some of them covers a little bit more comprehensively. Okay.
All right. So there are quite a few. There's quite a list of different covers that you can cover your animals, and I mean that is its own discussion with a broker like Reg at Mont Blanc that understands your risks and what would be appropriate for you. And I also think it depends on the area you're in.
100%.
Some areas are more prone to certain things than others.
That's 100%. I think also with animals moving around is that you might end up buying a cattle in the Free State area, bringing it up to Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Limpopo. It's also I think the one we've all heard of is back and close here, which is a big problem at the moment. So it does also vary in what area.
What happened there?
So basically, it's you can't export back and close yet. So animals need to be placed in quarantine once it's bought at auction. Usually they try not to move it between cross borders, South African borders, cross provinces. The reason for that, it is a highly infectious disease, can wipe out your whole cattle stock. So I know the Free State last year had a very big problem with it, and they try to say that if you have bought the cattle at the auction, that's not allowed to go cross border for a few days, and once it's been cleared by vet, then you can cross.
So what is that disease called?
Back and claw.
Back and claw.
Back and claw.
Sal het die Engelse vision there. Back and claw. Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's all
like so it's not like a foot and mouth, eh?
It is. It's foot and mouth.
Is it foot and
back
mouth?
and claw, yeah.
Okay, so foot and mouth disease, yeah. And tell me, can I be covered for foot and mouth?
Yes, you can. Obviously, it's a policy specific.
And we obviously can recommend and give premium according to that.
Yeah, so it's very specific. Some insurers as well, they see it as a big risk, they will decline it. But there is also a few insurers that's willing to look at it. The other thing is not sector, which is a big problem.
And your avian flu as well?
Avian flu is.
I mean, if I'm a big chicken farmer?
There is. It's very limited, but obviously also to a lot of.
I mean, I'm asking these questions because, you know, the viewers out there, a lot of the times you haven't had the right advice and you covered incorrectly, or you didn't have the opportunity to decide on whether you wanted that cover or not.
Yeah.
So we just say that an informed client is a good client.
Yeah, with avian flu, it's a very specialized. You obviously need to approach the Lloyd's market. No South African insurer that will offer it. I've had a client that has been offered the avian flu cover, but once again, it's very specific. A lot of protocols that needs to be followed, as obviously the last 2 years it's become a very big risk in South Africa.
100%. Okay, and then what are the other sort of things that we are covering in terms of your trackers, your tractors, all your farming implementation equipment, that kind of thing?
Well, that's basically your normal asset policy. We look at your tractors. I think the most scary part today is tractors, and I don't think a lot of farmers know about this, is that the road, the law has not changed, but it's been there forever. But tractors are becoming so big, combines is becoming even bigger. So none of them are allowed on the road. So a lot of insurers actually exclude because of height measures, that you're not allowed to use a combine on a public road. So then obviously you need specialized cover for that, or you need a warrant from the police to escort it on the road, and you need a permit for that. So a lot of the farmers it's quickly, you just farm up the road, you put your combine on the normal road, national road, and an accident happens, your insurance won't necessarily kick in because the national issue wasn't.
You didn't have on-road liability cover.
And also the own damage would be excluded. Obviously, it's against the law to drive something that doesn't belong on the road. It's not street legal. It's not street legal due to height and the measurements put in place. So that's very important. If you guys do use your combines on different farms, because a lot of farmers farm in different areas, then it's very good to have a broker advise you on the process, should that to go on the road, is what's actually needed, because you might be left without cover if it's not.
And also, we at Mont Blanc are proactive, so there's this on cover, off cover. We're quite used to that. So, we can assist with that kind of thing. It's not that you need to have this cover throughout the year, just so that you can use your combine 2 days in the whole year to go on cover. We're talking a little bit about pay as you farm.
Yeah, I think it's a nice innovation in the market. I mean, every farmer knows that new combines in the shed for a good 6 months. So now you're paying a premium, you don't really use it, where a nice insurer came to the market with pay as you farm. So once it starts up, then you only start paying, which is very nice. A farmer is focused on farming, he doesn't want to focus on insurance. And that's why the cover needs to be correct. From your sheds to your house to whatever you're doing is, I mean, we all know that farming is very different to insuring a building. COC farmers build on their own, they've got a contractor, they live far away from town, they don't have armed response. So the risk is very different to what you would look at a commercial.
And what about rebuild costs? I mean, I know that's always people try to apply, or other brokers try to apply normal conventional rebuild cost calculators, where, like you say, a farmer would build himself, so his rebuild costs are different to the average man in the street.
Yeah, I think it can go. It's a two-way street. I know a lot of farmers that live 200 kilometers from the closest town. So obviously your rebuilding cost, getting the materials on the farm, is very different to a guy living close to a normal city where he can 10Ks, he's got 3 builders around him, shops where he can go, where if it's a farmer in Kuruman or in the Free State and he's 200Ks from town, there's only one shop he can buy from, which he doesn't have the luxury of choosing the best price necessarily. So one, yes, building costs could be much higher,
or could be a lot lower.
Or it could be a lot lower
because he's doing his own building. So Reg, we're talking about when it comes to insuring the actual farm and your actual structures and that. I mean, what are some of the things that you've seen over all your years of doing farming insurance that you can give some tips and tricks to farmers out there to look for on their policy?
Well, I think a big thing is obviously it's still building regulations still apply, and a lot of the buildings or farmhouses are very old, not for the newest type of buildings you'll get in the city. So I think obviously the insurers are sometimes very strict about the building regulation. It still needs to apply to even a farmhouse. And then obviously there is a law. I know a lot of farmers has fuel on site, and it's quite large tanks. Have a regulation regarding having what happens if there's a spillage.
Bunding needs to be done. Where it is, how far it is from the thatch house.
How far it's from the shed. And I think the most common problem is also the regulation about storing items in a farm building. I think if you look at fodder, hail bales, there's a lot of requirements, stacking heights, where is it placed, what's the fire load on that building, because it's very easy that you can have a 6 million rand claim and the insurer says, oh, but you haven't done this X, Y, and Z, and now we repudiate your claim. So stacking heights are very important, especially when it's in season. There's a lot of crop coming in all at once, and there's not always enough time to place it everywhere across the farm. But the farmer needs to know that if there is a claim or a claim arises, he still needs to comply with the necessary requirements on his policy. I think on that as well is the FPAs. Any farmer in any area needs to be part of a Fire Protection Act, which is a regulation. They need to be onboarded with the close, so that will give a fire regulation and how they actually need to. If should a fire spread, what is the regulations of? Do I have a 3 meter, 5 meter on what's it in
boundary? Your boundary.
Fire break. So they determine the fire breaks. Very important to have a FPA involved. If you're not, then you will be, most of the time, you will be liable.
So Rich, talking about liability covers on a farm, okay, or my game farm. What do I need to look for? I mean, why? Why do I have it? What is it?
Well, I think liability can be obviously split into a few different categories. Your normal liability should something at full triple go wrong. Employer's liability should something go wrong on the farm with your employees. But I think for a farmer, the most important is the spread of fire. I think every farmer would know that every year there's 100 talks of what do I need to do, when do I need to do it, what if something happens. There's all protocols.
So if a fire occurs and originates on my farm and it spreads,
it's to your neighboring farm.
Am I liable as the farmer?
You are, because obviously you have if you don't have enough fire breaks, you don't have a necessary in place, you will also be legal liable for all the damages. So if you burn down his whole crop or he's got livestock all the day, but it's not just the actual liability of that. A lot of insurer will always try to mitigate these costs. So you get they call it bombing cost on your policy, which is they'll send up a spotter plane, they'll send a bombing plane. The reason for that is
they drop the water on the fire.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the Free State about 2 years back there's massive fire starting in Brandfort, going all the way down almost into the Northern Cape. Now that's hectares and hectares and hectares that burn down. So what happens now if you don't have a bombing cost on your policy and your neighbor doesn't have insurance, is who's actually going to stop the fire? That fire is just going to run. So that's very important. When you look at your liability section, yes, you can have spread of fire cover up to 10 or 20 million. But the most important thing is if that fire occurs on your farm, how are you going to stop it and make sure that you don't burn 20, 30 farms?
So it's actually a cover that you take as an extension.
Yeah, so it's an extension. It's called bombing costs.
Bombing costs, guys. We're going to click here. We're going to click on the link. We're going to explain all of that on our website.
So bombing cost is very important, and then the other I would say second mostly important is obviously if you've got livestock what happens if it ends up in the road or it goes to a neighboring farm and you now have a problem and your neighbor is not as friendly as he used to be because your bull has now had all the lucerne he could have dreamed of, and now there's some losses there. So it's called oorloop van vee in Afrikaans.
Ons sit die Engelse woord hier.
Oorloop van vee. I think especially when farmers there's always one naughty boy in your herd that will break out, and you will end up in a road, and if someone hits him on a public road, you will have some liable legal.
So what's that for your naughty bull?
So when you're new to it, oorloop van vee.
Okay. All right. Reg, game farms and safari. Tell us a little bit about that cover. I mean, it is inverted commas farming type of policy. Yeah.
I think it's obviously in South Africa it's a big market. I think a lot of farmers realize that you don't need to just do farming, you can play in the hospitality industry as well, because all the guys from Joburg like us always wants to go to a nice farm over the weekends and look at some wild animals. So I think on insurance it starts to become a little bit more of a very specific policy you require. Because now you've got the hospitality side for clients that's coming there, and a lot of agri policies is that the BI cover, business interruption cover, is not always taken. So it's very important to maybe look at your BI cover once you have a small guest house on your farm, and then obviously you're now having wild animals that you can't control at the end of the day, which obviously might be a risk to either it's people staying there or to a neighboring farmer which they might run over. So once again, the liability, if you go to the hunting side, if there's hunting on your farm, there's hunter's liability. Should something go wrong, it's usually
accidental shooting,
injury, fall off the back of the bucky. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong in those type of scenarios, where I would say it's very important to look at your liability section. From a guest perspective, we're staying in the guest house, in the lodge, to wildlife running over to the next door farmer over roads. I myself have struck a kudu on the N1. So it does happen that while these wild animals just run everywhere where they want to, no fence is always high enough to keep them in. So that's very important, is looking at the liability should one of your animals, and obviously the hunter's liability are very important.
And of course in the restaurant as well, the food and poisoning liability cover. And just your general public liability cover when you have guests on your farm.
Yeah, and guest belongings. I think there's always a chance of something getting stolen or something getting lost, and or eaten. So I think that's very important. At the end of the day, it's all goes about, you need a very nice specific policy, nice tailored to, because every game farm, every farmer has different needs. No one will be the same. No one runs on an A4 template standard in the market.
So we customize your policy.
Yeah, like for instance, if you take summer's water activities, then you need to include that under your liabilities. If someone is using a kayak on your farm, going into a river, and you don't provide them with life vests or anything like that. So it's very tailored
to these farms have rapids on there.
Rapids, nice big swimming pools, someone can drown. Is your
your signage correct? We advise you on your contracts, your terms and conditions. Yep, 100%.
So it's very tailored, very farm specific, very farmer specific as well. Each of everyone is dealt differently. We need to advise on all the type of risk scenarios that could be managed to a T, and we wouldn't have probably any problems going future with claims or anything that happens.
Okay, great. So guys, click on the link and you can actually see exactly what game farm insurance requires, and what are the pitfalls that you need to be aware of, and the types of covers that are essential for you if you're running a game farm with guests. Also, the liability covers should normally be in US dollars. If you have got international guests, understand liability for R1 million or R2 million doesn't go very far. If you've got high net worth clients on your farm from the US, Canada, Europe, and anything can happen, guys. Liability insurance is relatively affordable, and it's probably one of the first things you need to take out on a game policy. So guys, you can see there's actually a lot going on there. So I encourage you guys to click on the link below, get an expert when it comes to farming insurance like Reg. He heads up our farming division at Mont Blanc. knows what he's doing, has years of experience, and most importantly, Reg, jy praat die taal, jy is Afrikaans, Engels,
Mengels, alles.
Yes, thank you, Reg.
Thanks, Nick. Nick, stroopcontracteurs, what do you would?
Stroopcontracteurs.
Yeah.
Strap contractors. I mean, what in your experience? I mean, you've been in start again. 3, 2, 1. Let's have a